Next, we will learn about the third safety provision, which is earth leakage protective device. The supply of electricity to every electrical installation other than voltage not exceeding 250 volt below 5 kilowatt and those installations of voltage not exceeding 250 volt which do not attract provisions of section 54 of the Act shall be controlled by an earth leakage protective device so as to disconnect the supply instantly on the occurrence of earth fault or leakage of current, provided that such earth leakage protective device shall not be required for overhead supply lines having protective devices which are effectively bonded to the neutral of supply transformers and conforming to Regulation 73. This brings us to the end of second module of this session on IE rules. Without wasting any time, let us begin with the third module of this session. Objectives. By the end of this module, you will be able to identify various safety provisions for electrical installations and apparatus of voltage exceeding 650 volts. Safety provisions for electrical installations and apparatus of voltage exceeding 650 volts. Now, let us learn about the process of taking approval by electrical inspector. Voltage above which electrical installations will be required to be inspected by the electrical inspector before commencement of supply or recommencement after shutdown for 6 months and above shall be as per the notification to be issued by the appropriate government. Before making an application to the electrical inspector for permission to commence or recommence supply after an installation has been disconnected for 6 months and above at voltage exceeding 650 volt to any person, the supplier shall ensure that electric supply lines or apparatus of voltage exceeding 650 volt belonging to him are placed in position, properly joined and duly completed and examined. An approval is needed in writing from the electrical inspector. The owner of any installation of voltage exceeding 650 volt shall, before making application to the electrical inspector for approval of his installation or additions thereto, test every circuit of voltage exceeding 650 volt as per sub-regulation 1 of Regulation 46 and record the results of such tests and forward them to the electrical inspector. The owner of any installation of voltage exceeding 650 volt who makes an addition or alteration to his installation shall not connect to the supply his apparatus or electric supply lines comprising the said alterations or additions unless and until such alteration or addition has been approved in writing by the electrical inspector. Now, let us learn about the safety provision related to use of electricity at voltage exceeding 650 volts. The electrical inspector shall not authorize the supplier to commence supply or where the supply has been discontinued for a period of 6 months and above to recommence the supply at voltage exceeding 650 volt to any consumer unless all conductors and apparatus situated on the premises of the consumer are so placed as to be inaccessible except to a designated person, and all operations in connection with the said conductors and apparatus are carried out by a designated person. The consumer has provided and agrees to maintain a separate building or a locked weatherproof and fireproof enclosure of agreed design and location, to which the supplier at all times shall have access for the purpose of housing his apparatus and metering equipment, or where the provision for a separate building or enclosure is impracticable, the consumer has segregated the aforesaid apparatus of the supplier from any other part of his own apparatus, provided that such segregation shall be by the provision of fireproof walls if the electrical inspector considers it to be necessary. Provided further that in the case of an outdoor installation, the consumer shall suitably segregate the aforesaid apparatus belonging to the supplier from his own. All pole-type substations are constructed and maintained in accordance with Regulation 50. The owner shall observe the following conditions where electricity at voltage exceeding 650 volt is supplied, converted, transformed or used. He shall maintain safety clearances for electrical apparatus as per Bureau of Indian Standard specification so that sufficient space is available for easy operation and maintenance without any hazard to the operating and maintenance personnel working near the equipment and for ensuring adequate ventilation. He shall not allow any encroachment below such installation, provided that where the electrical inspector comes across any such encroachment, he shall direct the owner to remove such encroachments. The minimum safety working clearances specified in Schedule 7 shall be maintained for the bare conductors or live parts of any apparatus in outdoor substations excluding overhead lines of installations of voltage exceeding 650 volts. He shall ensure that the windings of motors or other apparatus within reach from any position in which a person may require to be are suitably protected so as to prevent danger. He shall ensure that where a transformer or transformers are used, suitable provision shall be made either by connecting with earth, a point of the circuit at the lower voltage, or otherwise to guard against danger by reason of the said circuit becoming accidentally charged above its normal voltage by leakage from or contact with the circuit at the higher voltage. Where a substation or a switching station with apparatus having more than 2000 liters of oil is installed, whether indoors or outdoors, he shall take the following measures, namely, the baffle walls of 4 hours fire rating shall be provided between the apparatus. Where there is a single-phase transformer banks in the switch yards of generating stations and substations. On the consumer premises, where adequate clearance between the units is not available, provisions shall be made for suitable oil soak pit, and where use of more than 9000 liters of oil in any one oil tank, receptacle or chamber is involved, provision shall be made for the draining away or removal of any oil which may leak or escape from the tank, receptacle or chamber containing the same, and special precautions shall be taken to prevent the spread of any fire resulting from the ignition of the oil from any cause, and adequate provision shall be made for extinguishing any fire which may occur. Spare oil shall not be stored in the vicinity of any oil-filled equipment in any such substation or switching station. All the transformers and switch gears shall be maintained in accordance with the maintenance schedules prepared in accordance with the relevant codes of practice of Bureau of Indian Standards. Dry type of transformers only shall be used for installations inside the residential and commercial buildings. Without prejudice to the above measures, he shall take adequate fire protection arrangement for quenching the fire in the apparatus. He shall ensure that the transformers of 10 megavolt ampere and above rating, or in case of oil-filled transformers with oil capacity of more than 2000 liters, are provided with firefighting system as per IS 3034-1993 or with nitrogen injection fire protection system. Where it is necessary to locate the substation or switching station in the basement, he shall take the following measures, namely, the room shall necessarily be in the first basement at the periphery of the basement. The entrances to the room shall be provided with fire-resisting doors of 2-hour fire rating, and the door shall always be kept closed, and a notice of this effect shall be affixed on outer side of the door. A curb, sill, of a suitable height shall be provided at the entrance in order to prevent the flow of oil from a ruptured transformer into the other parts of the basement. Direct access to the transformer room shall be provided from outside, and the surrounding walls shall be lined with fire bricks. The cables to primary side and secondary side shall have ceiling at all floors and wall opening of at least 2 hours rating. Fire retardant low smoke FRLS cable of 2 hours rating shall be used. He shall ensure that oil-filled transformers installed indoors in other than residential or commercial buildings are placed at the ground floor or not below the first basement. He shall ensure that cable trenches inside the substations and switching stations containing cables are filled with sand, pebbles, or similar non-inflammable materials or completely covered with non-inflammable slabs. He shall ensure that unless the conditions are such that all the conductors and apparatus may be made dead at the same time for the purpose of cleaning or for other work, the said conductors and apparatus shall be so arranged that these may be made dead in sections and that work on any such section may be carried on by a designated person without danger. Only persons designated under Sub-Regulation 1 of Regulation 3 shall carry out the work on live lines and apparatus. All apparatus shall be protected against lightning, and apparatus exceeding 220 kV shall also be protected against switching over voltages. The equipment used for protection and switching shall be adequately coordinated with the protected apparatus to ensure safe operation and to maintain the stability of the interconnected units of the power system. The minimum clearances specified in Schedule 8 shall be maintained for bare conductors or live parts of any apparatus in outdoor substations, excluding overhead lines of high voltage direct current installations. There shall not be tapping of another transmission line from the main line for 66 kV and above class of lines. Now, let us look at the safety provisions related to interlocks and protection for use of electricity at voltage exceeding 650 volts. The owner shall ensure the following, namely, isolators and the controlling circuit breakers shall be interlocked so that the isolators cannot be operated unless the corresponding breaker is in open position. Isolators and the corresponding earthing switches shall be interlocked so that no earthing switch can be closed unless and until the corresponding isolator is in open position. Where 2 or more supplies are not intended to be operated in parallel, the respective circuit breakers or linked switches controlling the supplies shall be interlocked to prevent possibility of any inadvertent paralleling or feedback. When 2 or more transformers are operated in parallel, the system shall be so arranged as to trip the secondary breaker of a transformer in case the primary breaker of that transformer trips. All gates or doors which give access to live parts of an installation shall be interlocked in such a way that these cannot be opened unless the live parts are made dead, and proper discharging and earthing of these parts should be ensured before any person comes in close proximity of such parts. Where 2 or more generators operate in parallel and neutral switching is adopted, interlock shall be provided to ensure that generator breaker cannot be closed unless one of the neutral is connected to the earthing system. The following protection shall be provided in all systems and circuits to automatically disconnect the supply under abnormal conditions, namely, overcurrent protection to disconnect the supply automatically if the rated current of the equipment, cable or supply line is exceeded for a time which the equipment, cable or supply line is not designed to withstand. Earth fault or earth leakage protection to disconnect the supply automatically if the earth fault current exceeds the limit of current for keeping the contact potential within the reasonable values. Gas pressure type and winding and oil temperature protection to give alarm and tripping shall be provided on all transformers of rating 1000 kVA and above. Transformers of capacity 10 megavolt ampere and above shall be protected against incipient faults by differential protection. All generators with rating of 100 kVA and above shall be protected against earth fault or leakage. All generators of rating 1000 kVA and above shall be protected against faults within the generator winding using restricted earth fault protection or differential protection or by both. High-speed bus bar differential protection along with local breaker backup protection shall be commissioned and shall always be available at all 132 kilovolt and above voltage substations and switching stations and generating stations connected with the grid, provided that in respect of existing 132 kilovolt substations and switching stations having more than one incoming feeders, the high-speed bus bar differential protection along with local breaker backup protection shall be commissioned and shall always be available. Every generating station and substation connected to the grid at 220 kilovolt and above shall be provided with disturbance recording and event logging facilities, and all such equipment shall be provided with time synchronization facility for global common time reference, but wherever numerical relays with provision of recording fault data are installed. Disturbance recorder and event logger may not be installed. Distance protection and carrier communication protection shall be provided for all lines connecting to 400 or 220 kilovolt substation.